So, to break the ice, something we like to do is we like to get a funny story. And I meant normally because we send the questions, I kind of like people have a heads up, but obviously we didn't send you the questions because you said you like kind of going with the flow and everything. So maybe you have one off the top of your head. Maybe we can give you a second, or Nick or I can tell one to give an example.
Oh yeah. And now is this being recorded, or you guys just want to hear a funny story?
Oh, no, we're recording. We like to put them in.
Okay.
If you want to tell us when you don't record it, then we're open to that too. We could just cut that part out.
No worries. No, I just wasn't sure if we're actually starting the interview or not. So, but yeah, I can definitely do a funny story. All right. So basically, I was a brand new patrol officer right out of the academy. I'd gone through my FTO program, and I worked in a city in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's actually a nice city. It's upper scale. People literally go there to shop from all over the Bay Area. And I remember my best friend, he also went to the police academy with me, but he worked in the exact opposite city in Richmond, California, which is one of the worst, most dangerous cities, not just in the Bay Area, but in the United States. And so he decided that he was going to come on a ride along with me to check out, hey, what do you guys do in Walnut Creek? I want to see the other side. And so I remember it was a weekend day shift, and we had gone to line up, and right out the gate, we get a call, and it comes out at the Ross department store, which is literally in the middle of downtown. And we're talking about like 2 p.m. So the stores are packed. And the call is a male who appears obviously aroused and wearing translucent underwear is in the kids section of Ross. And my buddy looked at me and he's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, are you kidding me? Is this like the kind of stuff that you guys respond to? And I was like, bro, let's just go. Let's get this done with so we can grab some coffee, enjoy our shift. I'm sure this is something stupid. It's nothing. And so we start rolling out there right out the gate. I know there's other cover officers going, but I'm like, bro, we're going to go in there. We're going to handle this. And so I pull up, the lot's completely full. I go inside the store, just people everywhere. Kids, parents, lots of moms. And this lady runs up to me. She's totally frantic. And she's like, officer, he's over there. He's over there. And so I look and I see this little head. It's like bobbing up and down. It's the polar opposite end of the store. And so all I can see is this African-American male. And I see this head bobbing up and down. So I start going over there, and this guy just starts running. I mean, as fast as he can. And we get in a little foot chase. I end up catching him right by the front of the store again, right by the registers, the checkouts, people are in line. And this guy, sure enough, he's wearing see-through boxers. And when I look, there's what looks like a fully erect male penis sticking out of the opening of the boxers. And we get into a fight. I mean, literally, I'm up, I'm down. My baton goes flying. I mean, people are just like screaming. I can hear like kids going, mommy, what is that? And all in my mind is I can think of is this giant, male penis is like swinging back and forth, hoping it doesn't hit me in the face. And so again, we're up, down. Eventually cover gets there. We end up having to pepper spray this guy, and this guy just, so he's crying. We get him handcuffed, and this thing is just sitting there. And I can't tell if this thing's fake, if it's real. And it turns out this guy, he had an actual strap-on dildo that looked real, and it was, around his waist and sticking through the boxers. And so we end up getting this guy in a wrap restraint device, which is basically where your legs are kind of wrapped up, your hands are handcuffed behind you, but this thing is sticking on top of it. And I remember the paramedics came in because we had a call from medical, and they're just like, they just paused and like, they're like, oh my God, is that like real? And I was like, I don't know, but we got to take care of this. And the best part was, so my sergeant, this guy was like, I mean, he was like Clint Eastwood. He looked just like Clint Eastwood. He was the most senior, crusty guy in our entire department. And literally, I'm this brand new rookie. And he walks up to the front of the Ross department store. He looks, he just shakes his head and walks away. And he was just like, I'm not even dealing with this. And so that was one of my like very first calls, like literally right out of training, with my best friend riding with me. And to this day, I'll never forget it. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah.
You still stuck it out after that. Man.
I did, literally.
That's great. I'd be like, what is wrong?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, it turns out, we interviewed this guy, and he basically, the story is, he told me he felt inadequate as a man. And so what he would do he would go to department stores with this apparatus because it made him feel more manly. And it just happened that when we were fighting, it came out of the opening of the boxers. I don't think he meant for it to come out that way, but with all the swinging back and forth, things just happen.
Wow. That's got to be the funniest story we've heard so far on the show.
Yeah, that's definitely.
You can't make it up. But like I said, we see all kinds of things as first responders.
I really enjoy, especially because you're prior military, I really enjoyed that was like the first funny story that came to mind. Definitely.
Right? I mean, it literally is. It's something I will never, ever forget.
Yeah.
Well, to follow that up,
yeah, exactly. So Michael, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
It's kind of a long story, but I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. So I am an Air Force veteran. I went into the Air Force right out of college as a butter bar, and I went into security forces. I served almost 6.5 years active duty. I served all over the U.S., in Europe, South America, and the Middle East. I separated in 2004 as a captain, and I immediately transitioned into civilian law enforcement here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I got hired by the Walnut Creek Police Department, which is about 25 minutes outside of San Francisco. And I started out as a regular patrol officer, as most do. About 1.5 years in, I got promoted to a field training officer, where I actually train not only new officers out of the academy, but lateral officers from other agencies. And after that, I was promoted to detective and was an undercover agent on a statewide drug task force here in California, which that was my absolute dream job. Yeah. And after that, I got promoted to sergeant and eventually public information officer. And I medically retired in 2018 due to post-traumatic stress injury, which in my case, it was a series of a lot of events over years, but the breaking point for me was a fatal shooting that I was involved in as a brand new sergeant the day after Christmas. And so now, after medically retiring and going through a personal journey of recovery with my post-traumatic stress injury, I'm now on the other side of it and living proof that you can get through this. And there's a whole new life waiting on the other side. And so now I'm dedicated and devoted to helping others to get the strength and courage to ask for help, because the bottom line is that not only for our active military, our veterans, and all first responders, but the facts are that we're all much more likely to die by our own hands, by suicide, than the hands of another, of a combatant or somebody on the street. And we need to address this. I mean, it's an absolute epidemic.
Yeah, that is a staggering number. I believe it. I don't find it hard to believe, but that I never heard the number said that way, that we have higher likelihood of dying by our own hands. That is a pretty powerful statement.
It is. And most people don't think about it, and that's the sad truth, is that we put our lives on the lines every day for complete strangers. And, if you're in the military, you're deployed to a combat zone or, something like that, you're in a hostile environment for a defined period of time. And then you leave that environment. You may come back stateside, go back to your base. But as first responders, especially law enforcement, we're literally in combat every single day.
Yeah.
And we have to face threats, 24/7. There is no safe zone. There is no safe area. I don't think people realize all the traumatic incidents and all the negativity and all the bad things that we're exposed to. And the bottom line is those take a toll on us. We're human beings, and it's not natural for us, whether we're military or first responders, to be exposed to this level of trauma and traumatic incidents.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a brother-in-law who's a firefighter, and we've talked about that before, where I said that I would think, so it's interesting to have this confirmed, that it's almost heavier being a first responder in the United States than when, like, Nick and I were deployed in Afghanistan. We had a pretty safe place to lay our heads at night most of the time. But we did have a 12-foot wall separating us from, where all the likely enemies were. And we had people were up around the clock watching over the base. And so it was a very different scenario than, you're wearing a uniform, which in some cases is like a target, and you're walking into Quick Trip, on a quote unquote break, and you're still having to watch your back, and you're possibly alone or with one other person. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And even beyond that, we have to watch your back when we're leaving work, when we're going home, when we're out with our families, if we're recognized by other people. The last couple of years alone, and George Floyd was kind of the impetus of this, where everything started, but the anti-law enforcement sentiment and culture is stronger now than it ever has been. And our officers literally, they don't have support at almost any level. I mean, we're talking about politicians, whether that's, city, local government, or county or state, or even all the way at the top of the president. And so, these heroes who are putting their lives on the line every single day literally have to watch their back from all sides. And the pressure and stress that we're talking about, it's almost unimaginable.
I can't imagine.
Yeah. Do you think that also kind of affects, people joining as well? That sentiment that you're kind of talking about?
Well, I can tell you this, I'm still very in touch and in tune with the current climate within law enforcement and other agencies. And right now, we've had record numbers of retirements across the nation at all levels.
Wow.
Most officers that have gotten to an age where they can leave the department and start collecting retirement, or if they have injuries and they go out medically, or even if you look at the actual police chiefs. I saw an article about a week ago where across the nation, there's been over, I believe, 300 police chiefs that have retired or resigned in the last few years. Wow. Because literally nobody wants to do the job anymore. And so what we have right now is we have a real gap and a real shortage at almost every agency across the US. We had the ironic thing is there was this big defund the police movement, and that really backfired in a lot of large cities, especially here in California, in Oakland and San Francisco, which are both in Northern California, both in the Bay Area. Now crime has absolutely skyrocketed. I mean, homicides are off the charts, record numbers. And so now these politicians who wanted to defund police are panicking because they're worried about losing their jobs, because the public is realizing, hey, we need our police. We need our heroes to keep us safe, to protect our streets. And so now what I understand is that, and this is the real bad part that I don't think most people have considered, is because of the shortage of police officers and the shortage of qualified applicants, agencies now are actually lowering their standards, and they're considering and looking at applicants that 10 years ago wouldn't have been looked at all. I mean, that's literally how desperate some agencies are. Yeah. And what's going to happen with this ripple effect when we have people in the profession who shouldn't be in the profession?
Right.
Yeah, the defunding didn't make sense to me, because the way I looked at it was the issues that we've seen all over the media, which are probably also blown out of proportion as they do. But the issues, the way we've learned in the military to improve something is more training. Like Nick and I, our job was to find IEDs. If we got hit on convoy, they weren't like, well, we need to take it easy with the training and kind of cut this back a little bit. They're like, no, we need, all right, how did this happen? How do we avoid this in the future? And we basically upped the training. And that was how I looked at it from the get-go. So I was very confused about that movement. Well, I wasn't really confused. I know exactly what was going on, but it didn't make sense for especially for the people that had good intention getting caught up in that. So that's interesting to hear about all that. I guess one question is, so looking at your links you've sent, which we'll post on our website and on, they'll post to Spotify and Apple, however people are choosing to listen to our platform. Looks like you're doing some great work with PTSD on both accounts, both for service people and for first responders. Can you tell us more about how people can get involved, whether they are needing help or wanting to help other people?
Well, there's a couple different organizations and groups where I've actually gone through these programs as clients. And now I'm actually a volunteer for one of them and an ambassador for the other. So what I'll do is I'll just break both of those programs down. The first one is called Save a Warrior. And if people want more information about this, literally just type in Save a Warrior. And this program, the beautiful thing about it is it's for active military, it's for veterans, and it's for all first responders, whether you're retired, you're active, out on injury. And this program is about a week long. It's a residential retreat. It's actually based out of Ohio, and they're building a brand new multi-million-dollar complex so that they can actually host more veterans and first responders. And they have a secondary location in Southern California. And this program focuses on the complex PTS, or post-traumatic stress. One thing that we haven't talked about here is that I want to mention that's key to Save a Warrior is that many people who seek out careers, whether it be in the military or as a first responder, they at an early age oftentimes become natural caretakers. They overcome adversity. They want to help people. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's due to some early childhood trauma. And that can be very minor in some cases. And when I say minor, it could be like as simple as an emotionally distant parent. It could be like an unaffectionate parent, or it could be on the polar extreme of that and be sexual abuse, physical abuse. And so this program is designed not to focus on the combat trauma or the street trauma, but it's focused on that childhood trauma. Because what most people don't realize is that we have this childhood trauma, then we choose these careers, and we end up having battlefield trauma or trauma on the streets. And these two things kind of collide and they compound. And you have to work on both of them individually, because although they're related, they're also very different. And so this program works on that. And for me, it was absolutely not only life changing, but it was life saving. And the best part about Save a Warrior is there is no cost to attend. It's actually 100% funded by donations. All you have to do is physically get yourself to one of those two locations. They provide all the housing, all the meals, and they provide the program. I mean, literally, it will cost you zero, and it will save your life. So just remember, Save a Warrior. And the last thing I want to say about that program is that when you Google Save a Warrior, you literally hit a couple clicks on your computer. It takes 5 minutes to apply, and they set up what's called a rostering phone call, where one person will call you from Save a Warrior. You'll literally have one phone conversation, and based on that conversation, they will decide whether or not the program is right for you. That's literally how simple and easy it is, and it will save your life. The second program is called the West Coast Post Trauma Retreat. Again, it's about a week long. It's a residential retreat, but this one is only open to first responders. You can be a veteran and have served, and a lot of veterans become first responders, but you have to be a first responder. You can be retired. You can be out on injury. This one, unfortunately, does cost money, but a lot of times agencies will pay for it. Workers' comp insurance will pay for it oftentimes, and they do have scholarships and payment plans. This one is absolutely amazing. And this one focuses on both the street trauma or battlefield trauma and also the childhood trauma. And there's chaplains, there's volunteer peers like myself, there's therapists, there's clinicians, and it's people that have been through this program. And the power of it is that I see time and time again is grown men and women who have never shared their deepest, darkest, I don't want to say secrets, but literally trauma. And they're able to share it in an open room filled with people within the first day or two. Wow. When they literally have been holding on to this for their entire lives. I mean, not even shared with their own spouses or family members. And the power behind that of knowing that you're not alone is the key to this whole thing. Whether it's Save a Warrior or West Coast Post-Trauma Retreat, is knowing you're not alone, that you're normal, that there's tons of people out there just like you, and that you can get better. That's the key, that you can get better.
Excellent.
Yeah, this sounds like great resources.
Yeah. I guess one of our big questions we ask, because we get really great answers, is if you could go back in time and tell yourself something, and I'll even give you two versions of this. Tell yourself something when you're first joining the military and when you're first becoming a first responder. What advice would you give yourself?
Well, I fortunately had this experience, I'd say months into my military career. I had gotten sat down by my commander. She was a missileer, and I was working security forces in the missile fields in Nebraska and Wyoming. And she sat me down next to my technical sergeant, or what we call tech sergeant. And she said, "You see that man that's sitting right next to you? That man's been doing this job for 17 years. And he knows this job better than anyone here. And so you need to shut up, sit down, and listen to this man. And he will help guide you, and he will help teach you, and he will shape you into the leader that you want to be." And that was so critical because, I remember going through the reserve officer training program, and I went through the Army. I went through Army officer basic. I went through the Air Force program, and everything's about leadership, and it's about authority and position. And, leadership, part of it's inherent, but a lot of it is learned and developed. And it's really important to know your people and to trust your people, and to realize that when you're that brand new butter bar, yeah, you're in college. That's great. And you went to some training, but you really don't know jack shit. And this seasoned non-commissioned officer sitting next to you, he knows everything. I mean, more than you're ever probably going to know. And you need to rely on your NCOs. You need to rely on your people and work together and develop your leadership. That would be the number one thing I would tell myself before my military career.
That's a good one for sure. I agree with 100%.
Yeah. More listening and talking and just, wow.
Mm-hmm.
On the first responder side, the law enforcement side, I think the first thing to understand is that, and this also correlates to the military, is that we're almost trained to believe that we're invincible. And there's good reason for that. We have to be warriors. We have to be able to go into the most dangerous situations and take charge and bring calm to disorder. And in the worst cases, we sometimes have to take lives. But, I never thought about the human side of the job. I never thought about the toll of the job. I didn't understand that. And frankly, back then, I didn't care about that. All I cared about was getting trained on firearms, learning how to drive fast, learning how to use defensive tactics and take people down. That's what I was concerned about. And those things are important. But looking back, I really wish I would have also asked and focused on the human side of the job and understood the toll that 30 years of being exposed to hundreds and hundreds of traumatic incidents is going to take on me. And the fact that, again, you need to rely on your family. You need to rely on your loved ones. I made a very conscious decision early on that when I got married, I wasn't going to talk about the job at home. I wasn't going to share anything about what I was going through. And that was a huge, huge mistake. Communication is absolutely key and absolutely critical, whether you're deployed in the military or whether you're on the streets. You need to talk to your family members, whether that's your spouse, your significant other, your children. Let them understand the things that you have to face and the things that you have to deal with, and let them know it's not them. When you're having that bad day, it's not them, it's the job. And maybe you just need a little space and a little time to decompress. And when you're ready, talk to them about it. But communication is absolutely critical.
That's great.
Also a really good one.
And one last question. So one of our biggest things that we're trying to do with our podcast is to lower the veteran suicide. And I think, kind of going off what you were saying with that last piece of advice, is a lot of veterans, they, that stigma of like, you got to be strong, you can handle all of that. What advice would you give to somebody that like they just can't bring themselves to get that help, but they desperately need it, because I think that's probably the biggest group that probably chooses to do it.
For me, looking back on my career was finding people that I trusted who had been through similar things that I've been through and relying on them and seeking them out to just talk to them. Because the biggest thing everyone's concerned about is that nobody's going to get it. Nobody's going to understand what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to think I'm crazy. And none of that is true. And so the key is you have to find those people that you trust, that are going to understand it and are going to get it, because we're surrounded by those people every single day. But for whatever reason, we don't have these conversations. We don't bring it up because we're embarrassed. We're ashamed. We're worried about it getting out or people judging us or looking at us differently. But the facts are that there's so many suffering in silence. I mean, it's countless the numbers of people that are suffering in silence. And what is the alternative? Suffering in silence to the point where you lose everything, like I did, to the point where you just don't want to be here anymore? No. You can't let that happen. You have to have the courage and the strength to reach out. I promise you, there are resources, there is help, and people will get it. They will understand it. You just have to start that conversation.
Wow. I got chills.
Yeah, that's really good.
Man. No, that's great advice. And thank you for, I think this will help a lot of people if they can hear it. And thank you for, being strong enough to do that for yourself, and then be even stronger to help more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the key, though, is that I want people to understand I wasn't for so long. I suffered in silence for 4 years. I lost my marriage.
Wow.
I put myself in dangerous situations at work, hoping I died in the line of duty. And that's what I'm saying is, don't get to the point that I did. Don't wait until it's too late. Ask for help early on. I mean, I literally almost lost everything. And a lot of the work I do, it's talking about the mistakes I made. And nobody wants to talk about their mistakes. Nobody wants to admit, but you know what? We're not perfect. We all make mistakes. And I made a ton of mistakes. I just thank God that eventually I got help. And, one thing we didn't talk about is, well, why did I get that strength and courage to ask for help? And the reason why is because my best friend, who was a Vietnam veteran, he was an Army MP. He was also a 35-year reserve officer with my department. We were literally best friends. He had retired from the force a couple years earlier, and I was on duty as the day shift sergeant, and he tried to kill himself when I was on duty. And I just got to the trauma center when they were bringing him in. He had slashed both wrists. He'd stabbed himself in the torso numerous times, OD'd on multiple prescription medications. And I saw him right before they rushed him into emergency surgery, just covered in blood, in and out of consciousness. And I thought, there's no way he's going to survive this. And thank God he did. But when I saw the toll that took on his family, on his sister, and then I realized the guilt and the shame that I had for not recognizing that my own best friend was suffering to the point that he did try to take his own life. And all I could think about was my young daughter at the time, that I wasn't going to let her go through that. I wasn't going to let her feel that way. And so he saved my life by trying to take his own life. And thank God he's alive today.
Wow.
Yes. Thank God indeed. I'm glad to hear that. And again, that is yet another powerful anecdote that we're very thankful we were able to hear and to get the message out to people that might be contemplating similar thoughts.
Yeah, and they might not think about that. What you saw,
Well, in a way, you saw what the worst case scenario can look like without having to experience it yourself, and that was what you needed to start making better decisions regarding your mental health.
And the thing is, suicide is not selfish. People talk about suicide being selfish. It's not about that.
That drives me crazy that people say that.
It's not about that. It's about people being in the darkest parts of their life that you can imagine where they don't see any hope, they don't see any help, and they feel completely alone, and they don't feel that there's anything else they can do, and they just don't want to suffer anymore. It's not about being selfish. It's about suffering to the point where you just can't take it anymore. And those are the people we need to help. Those are the people that we need to encourage to ask for help. We need to be there for. We need to check in on our family and friends and our coworkers. Not just, hey, how are you doing? How's your day going? I mean, really know our people and really check in with them to see what's going on and recognize when something's off and not be afraid to ask about it.
Looking back, do you like kind of see some of that in your friend? Like in hindsight, do you?
Not only do I see it in my friend, I see it in myself.
Wow.
With, I mean, for myself, I immediately started isolating. I started distancing myself from my friends, my family, my spouse at the time. I literally avoided social situations. And prior to that, I'd been very social, very outgoing. I started drinking more to the point where I just wanted to drink myself to sleep every night, hoping it was some nightmare that I would wake up and everything would be fine again. But as you know, that only makes things worse. And so with my friend, I noticed that he started distancing himself. We used to have lunch every week, and then he started making excuses of why he couldn't meet up or why he couldn't go to lunch. He was avoiding phone calls, avoiding messages, but I didn't confront him on it. I just was like, okay, whatever. He must have stuff going on. But that was a sign. It wasn't normal for him to do that. He was different. The things he was doing was different. His behavior was off.
Well, that's good stuff. Michael, we keep it to about 20, 30 minutes. So this is a lot of good stuff. We'll probably want to have you on again to take or to get more glimpses of your knowledge and your experience, because obviously there's a lot there. But thank you very much for your time. If you have anything else you want to add, please feel free.
No, the only thing I want to add is that I have a book that's coming out. I actually just finished writing the book with my co-author. Her name is Dr. Shauna Springer. She's actually a psychologist. She's worked mostly with combat military veterans, most of her career, and first responders. She's already written a couple books, but the book is going to be called Relentless Courage, Winning the Battle Against Frontline Trauma. And the key to this book is that whether you're in the military or a first responder, a family member of one, or just somebody on the street, the core of this book is going to be my story all the way back to childhood until present day. And within each chapter, there's going to be 14 chapters. Doc Springer is actually going to have a separate section where she explains things. She describes things in a sense that anybody reading this book will get it. They're going to understand the human side of the soldier, understand the human side of our first responders. And so they're going to get to see a glimpse into why do we choose these careers and what happens once we pursue these careers and what are the ramifications, not only to us, but to our families. And I truly think this book is going to help save lives.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. You're going to ask about that.
We're super excited. We literally just finished writing it 2 weeks ago. And so we're editing it right now. We're going to be formatting it and then publishing it. So it's going to be a couple months out, and I'll definitely post updates on all my social media platforms. It's going to be available on Amazon. We'll have pre-orders, but it's going to be an amazing, amazing book. And I think you guys will both love it.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have you back after we've both read it, and maybe we can go over that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great idea. I'd love to do that.
And we'll also put something on our site. We'll make sure to get a link when it comes out. We'll post something on our site so that people can access it as well if they want to read it before we get you back on.
And
sounds great.
We can upgrade it to this episode too, or update it,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Michael, it's been awesome. Thank you again for your time. And I really look forward to speaking with you next time.
Yeah. Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
We thank you for listening, and we hope you got something helpful out of this.
Right now, the best way to support us is to simply spread the word. If you know a fellow veteran who could use some resources to elevate their life, send them our way.
Until next time, remember to check your 0s, 5s, 10s, and 25s.